Latest football news, engaging debates,
and fascinating opinions.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio for another week of football action. Hope you're all well. I'm George. As always, hope you're enjoying your week as we sort of ease out of lockdown and things start to open, but still we can't go to football matches, but we will one day. Well, this week I'm always joined by Dan, our resident Ipswich Town fan. A little bit angry this week, but we'll get a little bit later on. But Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, we're coming out of lockdown now, aren't we? Back to work for people, which is fun. But yeah, I'm okay. Obviously, the football hasn't gone to plan this week either. So
no, it's not gone to plan at all. But we will discuss about that later on in the show. But first, social media's Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk, and also make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have some more additional content coming out very soon. A little sneaky peek. I don't think it should be. Maybe next week there might be a sneaky freak little video out for you guys, so you might enjoy that. Well, what have we got coming up in the show today? We're talking about, as always, Ipswich Town. 2 more games, but we'll be focusing on Tuesday's night's game a little bit more. The Premier League, we have some more twists and turns in the race for the relegation battle and for top 4. And we had the Champions League quarterfinals. We now know who's playing who in the semi-finals. And I'm going to be asking Dan to predict who's going to be in the final and who's going to be winning. Dan's already creasing himself because he actually doesn't know who's in what. This is the when Dan has no clue about Champions League football, but it's always entertaining to ask him what's going to happen. So when we come back, we'll be talking about Ipswich Town and what happened on Tuesday night. Stay up to date with the latest footy news.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan. As always, now before we move on talking about Ipswich Town this week, I better mention the social medias, Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see some more additional content. We might have something coming up next week that you might be quite interested in, and that's all I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you with a nice little teaser there. But Ipswich Town this week, well, they've been back in action for 2 games as the season gets closer to crunch time. Only now 6 games to go until the end of the season. But another goalless draw was not what Paul Cook needed in his first game of this 2-week sort of crunch time versus MK Dons. A 0-0 draw versus the Dons. Dan, another draw, another goalless draw. Not what it's just needed, really.
no, not at all. It was just so boring as always. We went into these games thinking that we could have a chance, but every single game now is just a bore fest. Both teams have 0 goal threat. It was the second game in a row that we didn't have a shot on target, which is absolutely ridiculous and pathetic, really, isn't it? So yeah, it's just ridiculous. I guess it doesn't help when you have Aaron Drinnen up front by himself. But what can you do when Norwood's injured again? And I don't know where Jackson was. I can't remember if he was on the bench or not. But yeah, it's just such a boring performance, poor performance. Didn't show anything going forward. And MK Dons didn't really look to get into it either. So poor result and a poor performance again, and it didn't help at all on this run that we're supposedly was the easy run.
Yes, the easy run. Oh gosh. This was mentioned back, was it, for the Wigan game? This is where it's just how we're gonna get all these points, and it'll be all nice and rosy, and it'll be Championship football next season. But unfortunately, it looks like things have gone from bad to worse on Tuesday night, as Ipswich's playoffs hopes took a massive blow, maybe a killer blow. We're not too sure, as Wimbledon, who are fighting for survival this season, got a 3-0 victory in what Paul Cook has called a season-defining game. Dan, Ipswich Town were down and out on the canvas inside 28 minutes. It's horrible to see, and it was a shocking performance. It's another shocking performance we've seen this season, but I think we can now say that playoff hopes, they're over, really. I know they're mathematically on, but 5 points to get the next 6 games, that ain't going to be happening, is it, so anytime soon?
No, it's not. And teams around us, well, I know they're not going on great runs. I think Lincoln and Doncaster, for example, aren't really going on great runs, but teams around us will pick up points because that's just what happens, and we can't do that. If you can't beat these teams, then where are you going to be? We're now 5 points off, and really unlikely, unless a miracle happens, I don't think anything will happen this season. When you think back on it, it was going to be hard to get in the playoffs anyway. I do think that. I think it was more possible, obviously, when Paul Cook took over, because I think we were only 2 points off at the time. But expecting Paul Cook to come in with this squad and make a huge difference and get us playing amazing football and getting us in the playoffs, I think it was going to be a difficult ask for him to do. So I think it was probably over a little bit before that, but this just, confirmed it for me. This result, it's just not going to happen this year, and bring on next year. But yeah, this game, embarrassing performance. It's horrible. From the off, I didn't think we started too badly. We were kind of attacking. We actually had a shot on target for once. It came from Drinnen, unbelievably. But yeah, we actually had a shot on target, which I guess is a step forward.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, it's defensively we were really poor. I think I felt a bit sorry for the centre backs because the fullbacks weren't really doing anything. They weren't really covering. They were letting crosses come in. I'm not saying the defence had an amazing game because they didn't. Obviously, 3 headers for the first 2 goals, which is just ridiculous. Should be doing better than that, especially with 3 defenders on the pitch, 3 centre backs on the pitch. But yeah, fullbacks were poor. Stephen Ward, he's way past it. He needs to just be gone now. And Edwards isn't a right wing back, so he can play there, but that's not his natural position. So, it's not going to go well. And credit to Wimbledon, I guess, for putting in a good performance, but we should be getting something out of these games. I know Wimbledon, they've been doing well recently. I think they beat Accrington 5-1 away at Accrington, which was a brilliant result for them. But these are the games you should be winning. And when you put in a performance like that, it's just not going to happen. I think Downs was really the only spark in this game. And then obviously Harrop getting sent off for absolutely reckless challenge. Definite sending off. You can't disagree with that at all, I don't think. It was over so early on in the first half that I think loads of people just turned it off, couldn't be bothered to watch it. So poor, embarrassing performance from the players. They need to take responsibility for it, I think.
Yeah, it sort of seems to be that way at the moment. Sort of everything you read and watching the highlights, it was an awful performance. But it's a shame now. 6 games to go. It feels like really the season is over. Town fans, they just want it over and done with now, really, and just sort of go to next season where the major change will start to happen with the new ownership coming in. But this game for Paul Cook, he described it after the match as major surgery needs to happen. Is it just that's what needs to happen? It needs to be rip out everything and just knock down the house and rebuild a new one, really, because it feels like that at the moment, because it feels like nothing is working with this squad and it needs to be something new. And people suggest maybe the under-23s now play until the end of the season.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of them under-23s come in, because I think Paul Cook's kind of resigned to the fact that we're not doing anything this season. He's got a big job on his hands, obviously. It'll help with these new owners coming in, but I think I understand what Paul Cook is like at other clubs. He's kind of wanting to sign the players he wants. And I think under these new owners, and especially with the new CEO coming in from Bristol City, it's not going to be like that in the summer. So that'll be interesting. There was some people were thinking that he was going to resign. I don't think that's true. I think that's a little bit silly. But he's definitely got a task on his hands. And I think he just wants this season, as us fans do, I think he just wants this season to be over so he can start rebuilding. And I guess we've started doing that in some areas. Some young players are being released. Some staff have gone as well, actually today. So it's interesting to see what other things have changed between now and the start of next season. But I think Paul Cook understands that this season's over now and we need to just focus on next. And I definitely wouldn't be surprised if youngsters come into the squad. And I'd like to see that. What can, it won't hurt to see that because, senior players aren't performing as they should be. So give the youngsters a chance. But yeah, I think Paul Cook's just fed up with this squad now. You see it in his interview. He's just absolutely fed up with them, as all of our fans are as well. I think a lot of Ipswich fans are saying, we spent ages blaming Paul Lambert, but I think this, people can change their opinions, and I think this change of manager. Cementing the fact in my mind that it doesn't matter what manager that comes in. Paul Hurst tried it with. There's a few changes, didn't work with him in the Championship. Paul Lambert came in. We gave him time. He had pretty much the same squad. He couldn't do anything with it, and now Paul Cook's here. He can't do anything with it either. So the determining factor in all of them three is the squad. So I think this summer is going to be massive, and I really hope that massive changes happen, and I think they will.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens now with the final 6 games to go, because if we look at the table, Ipswich are going to get relegated. There's only 18 points now available from the next 6, and they're currently 20 above the relegation zone. So we could see some under-23s come in. And as you said already, the change is now starting to happen. The young players, some of the youth players have been released. I think, was it Ben Flamy, Harry Wright, and Adam Prubeck? He's been let go. Yep. I was quite surprised by that. I thought he would be staying. He was a all right goalkeeper, I thought, when he played against Peterborough, but they thought a little bit differently. And said there, Jimmy Walker, he's gone. He's been released yesterday. The goalkeeping coach, I think the academy coach, has now come into as an immediate effect to replace him at the current moment in the club. And Ipswich Town have got a new CEO starting in May in Mark Ashton from Bristol City. Very experienced CEO. We have to see how that goes. But the fans, as you said, they've been sort of criticising Paul Cook a little bit on social media about, is he the right man for the job? A few fans did suggest about, why did we sack Paul Lambert in the first place? Oh boy. They must be living under a rock or something. I'm not too sure. But, he joined in February. He's had no transfer windows. He has been throwing the kitchen sink at this. I think you can't fault his determination. He's tried new formations, I think, every single game. 23 different players have been used in his time there. He is searching for that winning formula, and it's not working. But do you reckon fans were expecting this sort of honeymoon period where Ipswich Town just go and they win games and it's all rosy and all this? But I think he's shown here that this squad is not capable of what he needs, and it's not wanting to play with him at all.
No, and I think that's proven in the fact that he's completely changed the formation that he uses. He's a 4-2-3-1 manager, isn't he? He's done that at every single club he's been at. But he's had to change the formation to suit our squad, I guess, and they're still not really performing. So I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's ridiculous that Paul Cook is being blamed for this. As you said, he's had no time at all. He's come in, inherited the squad that Paul Lambert had. I think the biggest problem with Lambert was that he was giving these players a free ride. He was saying that they were performing well every game, which wasn't true. He wasn't honest. And I think that's the difference. Paul Cook knows, knows the problems and he's an honest person and he'll come out and say what he needs to say. He did say in his interview that he's being tight-lipped about some things, which kind of proves that he wants to talk about, how this squad isn't good enough. But you can see from his demeanour that he's not happy with this squad and, he wants this season to end. I can't believe our fans and some people who are on other podcasts as well starting to question Paul Cook, because these are the same people that gave Paul Lambert so much time. In the relegation season, he had enough to stay up. He has so much time. He had a transfer window as well. Paul Cook hasn't even had that. We were 5 points off in October. And some people are blaming him when he's had 10 games with Paul Lambert's squad. It's just absolutely ridiculous, I think. He can only do what he can with the players he's got, and he's come in with a squad that isn't good enough. So, I think it's just stupid that some fans are questioning him, I think. I'm definitely going to give him time. I said when he came in, the rest of this season will be a free ride, whether he, gets us in the playoffs or not. Because the fact is he hasn't had time to implement what he wants to do. So, I'll stick with him. I'll give him time until the end of next season, with investment and thought of what we're going to do in the summer. I think it could be an exciting time next season with Paul Cook as manager. I still believe he's the right man for the job. I really do still believe that, because he's a really good manager and he's proven it at other clubs before. He seems like a really nice person as well, and he'll be honest to the fans, which is really good to see. So silly that people are blaming him, I think.
Yeah, I thought we used to be about that honesty though. Is it because he's been questioned because he's got that, he's come in with certain expectation. He is a proven manager. What we're seeing, what he's done at Wigan, Portsmouth, he is a proven manager here. Is that why people are questioning him? Because he's got this legacy and he should be coming in straight away and making this impact. It should be an explosion, but nothing's happening. Is that why people are questioning him?
Probably, yeah. I think people expect a new manager bounce, don't they? It happened at Portsmouth. It happened at Charlton. It happened at other clubs as well.
Sunderland.
So I think Sunderland, yeah. So I think people are expecting that straight away from us. But them squads have good players, don't they? Sunderland's squad is really. I think Sunderland's squad's probably one of the best in the league, which is proven because they're fighting for promotion. Charlton have a really good squad as well. They've still got some of their championship players in that squad. And I think Portsmouth have good players as well. So they've just got better squads than us. I sometimes think, why has it not happened to us? Why can't it happen to us? It's happened at every single other club. But I think I need to be a bit realistic and think that it's not going to be instant success. And I think that's what a lot of fans wanted with Paul Cook's appointment, which we shouldn't have done, really, I don't think, because it puts a lot of pressure on him as a manager. I don't think he's really happy with the way things are going, but he knows that he's got the summer of change coming up. He knows that he's going to have investment in his squad. He knows that he'll be able to have at least some input in what players he signs. So I think he's happy to stay here until and for the change during the summer. But for some people to think that instant success will happen it's just silly. It happens to clubs, but it's not realistic, I don't think, really, for the squad we have and the club that we are. It just wasn't going to happen.
No, not so. Well, you sort of mentioned it in the previous sort of answer. It was about the honesty in his interviews. He has been honest since day one, and he was brutally honest after the game in his post-match interview. I cannot speak. Sorry. No papering over the cracks. None of this. He said that our supporters are tired now and bored of us. He's not happy. You can see he is not happy at all with what's going on the pitch. I think he's happy with what's going off, but on the pitch is a different story. And you can tell he's trying to keep everybody motivated, but he can't at this current time because there's nothing positive happening on the pitch to sort of help him here. Really, he's. I think you can see he is sort of struggling himself to try and find that motivation to sort of keep going. Oh, things will get better this season because unfortunately they don't look like they're going to be.
No, they don't. And I really feel sorry for him because I hate to say that the players don't care, but it's what it seems like in every single game we play. You know, I think he said in his interview, he said, if you don't feel awful and for days after a result like this, then there's something wrong with you. And he feels that the players don't feel awful after a loss like that, which is, you know, a massive problem. I think he just understands the task he's got in front of him, and it's a big one at that. I think he understood that when he took the job, but I think he probably knew that something was going on. You know, takeover news was kind of starting at that point when he took over. So I think he knew something was going on. So I think maybe that was probably one of the reasons why he joined. Maybe he just wanted to see out this season in a good way, but it hasn't happened like that. But I think we just need to keep the faith in him. You know, I think we can really see what type of manager he is and see what he does with the players we have next season. And I think we'll be fine. I think he's the right man for the job. But yeah, he's definitely not happy. And he said, you know, the big problem is he says he doesn't trust the players, which, you know, to hear your manager say that, it's very poor, isn't it? You know, that you don't trust in your own players. So, you know, disappointing that the way things are going under him at the moment, because I feel really sorry for him because I don't think it's his fault at all. And I think that, you know, from watching that interview, I think he feels himself that he needs to take responsibility, which I don't think he needs to do. And I think he does take responsibility, which is, I don't think he needs to do that because it's not his fault.
Yeah, it'll be interesting your hands. Well, finally, it feels like now the focus is now towards next season. They are 5 points still off the playoffs. It is still mathematically possible, but it feels like that won't be happening. And we haven't talked about the players at all. I think every Ipswich fan, they were not happy with their performance on Tuesday night. Flynn Downs, after the game, probably one of the stand-up players really from that game, described this season as been horrible from his point of view, and I think from just in general. But it feels like for a lot of these players here in this game, then they know their time is up at the club. And it's sort of sad to see that they don't seem to care now to put in a shift, you know, with potential clubs wanting them. I know also Green Overs, he's rumoured Preston and Sunderland for next season, but it's sort of not good to see. But there's that mentality that they don't care what happens now. It's awful to see.
It is, and I think mentality's been a huge problem for a long time now. You know, from back in the relegation season, you know, from back when Paul Hurst was in charge. I think, you know, the senior players or at least some of the players didn't like him coming in and, you know, stamping his authority, which I think this squad needed after Mick left, because we know his character. So yeah, I think, you know, under Paul Hurst, they didn't like that. Paul Lambert, I think, was a manager that came in and just said they were good. You know, that's all he said to them. He probably said they were decent quality players, so they liked that.
Normal.
Yeah, exactly. But I think under Paul Cook, he sees what really is going on. But I think it's disappointing to see the players, you know, putting in performances like that. Because even if you're not going to be playing for the squad, for the club next season, which a lot of them I don't think will be, I think you want to put in performances for your career. You know, if clubs are going to look at you and think, why would we want him if he can't perform? You know, they might be fed up with being at the club, the way things are going, but it's not going to help it with the future of your careers. So it's really disappointing to see that they've kind of, you know, decided that they're not gonna perform in these last few games because they know that they're not going to be here. But I think, you know, we've pretty much ended the season now, haven't we? I think as a club, we know that we're not going to be anywhere. We're going to be in League One next year. We're going to be looking to change things up for next season. But it's still disappointing to see that our players, you know, that are representing our club are not putting in the effort. And for what this club stands for, what history it has. It's just a disgrace, really. I think that people are not really caring about this club or putting in the effort. It's really, really horrible to watch sometimes.
Yeah, it is especially when you pay £10 for it and you turn off half an hour into the game.
Yeah,
It is
that was me.
horrible to see. That was you. Well, this Saturday or tomorrow, Ipswich Town are back on the road after Tuesday's dreadful performance, looking to end their poor run of recent results. So they play Charlton, a team that's currently sitting in 8th place, 3 points off the playoffs. They're unbeaten in the last 8 games. Dan, will Ipswich Town get a win and jump over their opponents, which they can do, or will Charlton just continue that unbeaten run and possibly have a shot of going into those playoff places?
Yeah, I think everyone agrees that there's not going to be anything from this game. Charlton, they're a good side. They've had a really good, time with Nigel Adkins. I think he would have been a decent choice for manager here if he weren't going for Paul Cook. He's a decent manager and he's really got them together. They're performing really well at the moment. And after these last games, coming into a game where we play a team that are above us, it's not looking good for us, is it? It doesn't really matter to me what squad we put out or what formation. I know that a performance will be not good enough again because it hasn't been for so long. So, yeah, I can't see us getting anything from it. The season's over, so I just want the games to not come anymore, really. But we're going to have to play these games, and I don't think we'll get anything from it. I think it'll be a loss. I'll go for a 1-0 to Charlton.
Oh, a 1-0 to Charlton. That is Dan's prediction for Charlton versus Ipswich Town tomorrow afternoon. Is it an early kickoff, if I'm right, or is it 3 o'clock?
Yes, 12:30.
12:30.
Kickoff.
It is.
Yep.
Gosh, I was right for once. Well, let us know what you think. What's your score predictions? Let us know on Twitter at Pitchside Talk for Charlton versus Ipswich Town. So when we come back, we're going to talk about something a little bit better, a little bit more lighter. The Premier League. Everything is getting very tense at the moment. And we'll see what happens right after this.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio. It's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan. As always, now before we move on talking about the Premier League, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram talk_pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk. And don't worry if you missed anything from today's show. Don't worry, at 6 p.m. Fridays, straight after the show, it'll be up on YouTube and Mixcloud. If you missed Dan talk about Ipswich Town, as always, in his always glory. Well, yeah, it's an interesting listen. I have to say now that Premier League, it has been back in action once again as we get closer to that crunch time as well. As the champions elect hit a bump in the road, the top 4 race starts to heat up and the relegation battle saw one team take one crucial step towards safety. But before that, I better read out the results. So on Friday, we had a Friday night game between Fulham and Wolves, and Fulham suffered a massive blow, losing 1-0 to Wolves in the 92nd minute from a Adama Traore strike. Man City, they lost to Leeds 2-1. Dallas double did them in there. Liverpool won 2-1 against Aston Villa. Chelsea won 4-1 against Crystal Palace. And then Sunday's games kicking off. Newcastle, they got 3 crucial points against Burnley in a 2-1 victory. West Ham won 3-2 over Leicester. That is a big result in the top 4 race. Manchester United got revenge on Tottenham, beating them 3-1. And Sheffield United lost once again as Arsenal won 3-0. And then Monday Night Football, we saw West Brom, they won 3-0 versus Southampton. Oh my God, they're actually going to play some good football now, finally. And Brighton drew 0-0 with Everton. Now, firstly, this relegation battle, Newcastle, they took a massive step towards safety for next season after a win over Burnley. As Fulham lost to Wolves, the gap is now 6 points between the two sides. Dan, here, in a season of what we're calling fine margins here, could this be the difference now of Newcastle being in the Premier League next season and Fulham going down? Because Fulham have lost now 4 games in a row. Both sides have got tough runs coming up. I know they've got to play each other still, but this could be the difference now between survival for Newcastle and for Fulham leaving, unfortunately.
It could, yeah. And I said last week that Newcastle only needed this one result, didn't they, to try and pull away from Fulham, who have been disappointing recently. You know, they looked so good before. They looked like they were going to easily overtake Newcastle, but they've just, I don't know, maybe it's just got too much for them, and they've had a tough run of games, obviously. But it has still been disappointing. But I think this win is very important in the relegation, fight. Obviously, it's still not over. Still 6 points, but it's a big margin, really, isn't it? And when you think about it, this close to the end of the season, so I think the draw against Tottenham and this win against Burnley was massively important for Newcastle. And I still don't think they'll be happy with the season they had, but I think that's probably done them in good stead for safety. I don't think Steve Bruce will still be there, but he could be next season, but I doubt it. For Fulham, disappointing. Do they have enough fight in them to catch Newcastle again? I think that game at the end of the season still might be a defining game as well. The game against each other on the last day, which would be really interesting to see. But it's more than likely it'll probably be over by then if Fulham's run of form keep going on. So yeah, I think this was massively important for both clubs in the relegation battle.
Yeah, that's the Saint Maximin effect for you, Newcastle. When you bring him on, he scores. Well, the top four race, that is heating up as well as now 3rd to 6th place are only now split by 4 points. Yes, 4 points. Leicester, West Ham, Chelsea and Liverpool are all in the hunt for European football next season. Last week, Dan, you said that Chelsea were going to get that final spot in the Champions League for next season. But with Leicester, now they're under threat after losing to West Ham. And after what we saw last season with them, the end of the season was so poor for them. We saw them absolutely collapse out of those Champions League spots. Could we see maybe another twist in the road here for the race to the top 4? Because Leicester are now being pulled back into this. They could possibly drop out here.
Yeah, they could. I think it'll be inevitable that there'll be a twist at some point in this, because we know the Premier League this season, and with these teams so close together near the end of the season, I think it's going to be really close, and there'll be a twist somewhere. But I think for Leicester, it's disappointing that they've been caught up in this again, because I thought they were easily safe in the top 4 for this year, but they've kind of put themselves into problems with these last 2 losses against City and West Ham. So yeah, I think they did the same last year, didn't they? They were, after lockdown, they were in the top 4 and they just dropped off. That could happen again. It'll be interesting to see. I think they've got a decent run coming up against teams down the bottom of the league. They've got that FA Cup game as well, which could affect them, I guess, but they've got some you'd say easy games. I think they've got West Brom next, so they've got a decent run, but then they've got 3 tough games at the end of the season, so it's going to be interesting. But for West Ham, they're looking good. I think Lingard coming into West Ham has really made a difference to them, and they're looking really good at the moment. I think they've got every chance of getting in the top 4, but I think with teams like West Ham and Leicester, they've still got the tendency to pick up poor results in some games. So it'll be interesting to see. But then obviously Chelsea and Liverpool are breathing down their necks, and they're still picking up results. I think Liverpool have kind of changed their fortunes a little bit. They were pretty much losing every single home game they played earlier on in the season, but they're kind of starting to pick up results again. So I think it's going to be really close between them and Chelsea to get into the top 4. Could be both of them in the end. You never know, but it'll be really interesting. I think Chelsea still have every chance. So yeah, it's really exciting, this top 4 race. Can't wait to see who manages to get it.
Yeah, it will be interesting because West Ham, they're still got to play Chelsea. Chelsea has still got to play Leicester. So one of these teams is going to drop points. And I think it will be very interesting to see what happens. And that is everything, really, for the Premier League this week. We've got lots of games coming up. This week we've got 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 1 on Monday, 1 on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, 1 on Friday. Oh my! Premier League games are coming thick and fast, but don't worry, we'll have them all covered for you next week. Also with the FA Cup as well, because that is happening. But when we come back, the Champions League, it was back, and we found out who's going to be in the semi-finals for this year's competition.
The best place in Ipswich to hear the latest football debates, Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George, and Dan. As always, now before we move on talking about the Champions League quarterfinals, second legs, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to any of our previous shows, don't worry. This show is going to be up at 6 p.m. on Friday straight away. You can hear Dan talk about Ipswich Town, and we had a very interesting chat about the Premier League, about the relegation battle this season, and the top four battle. Now, the Champions League is back after only a week off for the second legs of the quarterfinals, and we found out who made it through to the semi-finals of this year's competition. And starting off with Chelsea versus Porto, and Chelsea kept marching on into the semi-finals, ending their 7-year drought of Champions League semi-finals after surviving a late spectacular scare overhead kick from Porto, with Thomas Tuchel describing this moment as a great achievement for the club. I have to say, what a turnaround he has done to get them into the Champions League semi-finals. I think under Frank Lampard, we would not expect them to even get past Atletico Madrid. And this season, we will see new champions as the defending champions Bayern Munich are down and out as PSG got their revenge from last year's final. A big disappointment for Bayern Munich, who couldn't turn around the night. They got an away goal, but it was too much. PSG got too many away goals in the first leg. Big disappointment for Bayern Munich. It looks like their manager now, Hansi Flick, is now off to manage Germany after Lau leaves after Euro 2020 or Euro 2021. I'm not too sure. It's one of the two. But for PSG, it shows how much they've grown from the last season, and it makes them now firm favourites for the crown this season. Liverpool, they huffed and they puffed, but it wasn't enough. They got knocked out of the Champions League by Real Madrid after a 0-0 draw at Anfield. Klopp highlighted how important the Salah chance was in the 2 minutes that would have set the tone if he scored that, he said. And also it was made clear that the game was lost in the first leg after losing 3-1 at Real Madrid's training ground, not stadium, training ground. And Manchester City, they broke their quarter-final curse under Pep Guardiola, getting after a comeback after Dortmund against Dortmund. Sorry, I'm losing the plot here. Against Dortmund, reaching the semi-finals for only the second time in their history of the Champions League. They had to fight back after Jude Bellingham's spectacular strike beating Edison. He's now the youngest goal scorer in Champions League history at 17 years and 200 odd days old. Madness. But Man City, they kept pushing. They got a penalty from a handball from Emre Can. Mahrez scored it, and then Phil Foden sealed it like he did in the first leg. Pep Guardiola praised his side and highlighting the importance of the semi-finals that they've got to keep going. So the quarterfinal stages are now done. So here are the fixtures for the semi-finals. So we're going to have PSG versus Manchester City and Real Madrid versus Chelsea. Dan, I want to just get a quick line here from you. Who's going to be traveling to Istanbul? And who's going to be winning in the final? I'm going to get your early predictions. Who's going to be in the final and who's going to win it all together?
You know, I think it's actually quite hard to predict this Champions League final because, you know, all four teams have been doing pretty well. But I think PSG versus Man City, I think PSG just have a too strong squad. I know Man City have been really good this season. I don't think it will be I think it'll be a close game. I think there'll be goals, but I just think PSG have enough to get to the final. So I think it'll be PSG. And I'm favouring Chelsea in the Madrid-Chelsea game, just because Chelsea seem to really, they seem to have turned up in the knockout stages. I think Tuchel's done an amazing job. So I'm going to go for a PSG-Chelsea final, which would be really interesting. Yeah. But then I think if that's the final, I think PSG will go into it favourites and probably win it. So sorry, Piers, but I'm going to say PSG-Chelsea final with PSG winning it.
Yeah, our resident Chelsea fan, Piers, he will not be very happy with that. He will be having some few words for you, Dan, after about that. But yeah, that's everything for the Champions League this week. Do you agree with Dan's predictions there for the final and who's going to win it all together? Let us know on Twitter at Pitchside Talk. And when we come back, I think we're going to have a little bit of time here for a football roundup.
Pitchside Talk, footy debate from the Premier League Outback.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on iRadio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan, as always. Now, before we get on talking about football roundup this week, I will mention the social medias very quickly. Twitter is at Pitchside Talk, Instagram is talk_pitch, YouTube Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. Now, football roundup this week. Hooray, we love it, we love it, we love it. And Dan, you're starting off this week. You've got some Ipswich Town news for us.
Yes, more Ipswich Town news. There's a lot of that lately. We did kind of mention it in the show earlier on as well. So the goalkeeper coach, Jimmy Walker, has left the club with immediate effect. Interesting to see because it looks like the changes have started already. Paul Cook said, he wanted to make changes to his backroom staff. So off goes Jimmy Walker. Can't say I'm massively upset with it, but obviously wish him well wherever he goes at his next club, because I think he was pretty good here. He was involved in them 3 games that we won, the whole Doncaster and Accrington games. He did well then, I guess, but his Twitter presence has been questionable by a lot of Ipswich fans, but obviously good luck to him.
Yes, League One is an average league. Remember that.
Yeah.
When was that? That was said back in October when everything was all okay, and then once that happened, it all went a bit wrong. But I haven't got any official news for you, but I've got gossip news. Apparently, Jesse Lingard is undecided whether he should return back to Manchester United at the end of his loan at West Ham, or he should stay at West Ham. Personally, I think he should stay there permanently, and he looks like he could be involved in the Euro squad. Apparently, Manchester United are stepping up their interest in Declan Rice from West Ham. Maybe we might see a little swap deal for those two. I'm not too sure. And apparently, Julian Nagelsmann has insisted there's no talks between him and Bayern Munich, as Hansi Flick looks set to be the new Germany boss. Apparently, there's no talks about him going over to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich, as always, poaching all the good talents in Europe, as they always do, because that's what Bayern Munich do best. They don't use their own talent, they poach the best. But that's just how they run. And that is everything for today's show. We've reached the end of today's show. It's such a shame, Dan, but apart from this bit, but such a shame, really.
Yeah, the Ipswich bit we can forget.
Yes, so we can forget about that. Well, the social medias, Twitter is at Pitchside Talk, Instagram is at talk_pitch, YouTube Mixcloud are both at Pitchside Talk. If you listen back to any of our previous shows, any other additional content that we do, or even this one, if you missed anything, don't worry. In a few minutes' time, it will be out, where you can listen back to Dan talk about Ipswich Town, the Premier League, and the Champions League this week. So what's coming up after us? We've got the Gap show 6 until 7, the Reba show 7 until 9, and Flip the Switch 9 until 10. So, Dan, thank you very much for joining us today. I guess you'll be with us as always for next week, as you're contractually obliged, like I am, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll definitely be there.
Great, that's always good to hear. So I've been George this week. He's been Dan. We'll see you next week, and ciao.
Yeah.
The whistle has been blown for full time. Tune in next week for another jam-packed show.